out there at that time and all that kind of stuff. So I was down in Hollywood most of the time because I was actually living in the Hollywood foothills there, and I was hanging out there all the time that all this other stuff was going on at Disneyland at that time. So, and Probert had a band. George Probert, are you familiar with George?
Yeah, the clarinet player.
Yeah. He had been with anybody and everybody from, Firehouse 5 to whatever.
And he's still going.
Yeah, George is a great guy. So anyway, he had a band together. We used to play, when we closed up at Disneyland, we'd go over and play in Redondo Beach at this place out there. George had a band together on that. That was the place that after, what's his name's Lighthouse, he opened this place in Redondo Beach. And so that was what was going on at that time. And Danny Barrett, you know Dan Barrett, trombone player.
I know who he is. He's got a new group now called Bed with Rebecca Kilgore and Eddie Erickson.
Right. Danny was 16 years old at that time, and his parents were bringing him around, and we used to go over to where Alton Purnell played piano, and Danny would come in, and at that time he played as much trumpet as he did trombone. He wasn't sure which instrument he was going to go to. He still plays good trumpet, but he's mostly a trombone player now. But he was like 16, and so everybody was just kind of getting started there in L.A. at that time. All the trad kind of people, because it had died for a while. It was older people, because I'm 65 and George is Probert's about 10 years older than I am. So that period that George Probert was in was dying, it was fading away, and these young guys were coming into it at that time, and there was a gap in it. But there was pretty much a gap in trad music of that kind of thing over the U.S. during the time I was doing it anyway. So,
well, tell me, this one CD you have here called The Blind Man on the Corner Singing the Bill Street Blues.
Well,
how'd that come about?
Well, for a number of years now, I've been writing musicals and different plays and film scores and film treatments and various different things like that here. That's another reason I stay in New York, because I do a lot of writing that's not musical writing also. And so that was a little show that we put together and did here for a short while with some backers and other things here in New York. And so we just went ahead and recorded it after we had done a backers benefit thing for it. And we just put it together. And my old friend, David Huddleston there, he's an actor that you'd recognize if you saw him, because he's been in everything under the sun. He did the narration on it, and we just kind of put it together, went to the studio around the corner here to put it together, and I liked it, and I was using it as a demo for other people to show them my work and to get that piece done some more and things like that. And so I just thought, well, hell, I kind of like it. I think I'll just go ahead and put it together and put it out, because a lot of the more traditional people like the storyline of it. And where I tell them, like the old timers told me about where ragtime comes from and jazz and all that kind of stuff. All that stuff is accurate in there, so I just went ahead and put it out for that reason.
So this was only done in a studio, it never was done on a stage?
Yeah, we did it for a while. It was done, we did it for a couple of backers auditions, and then we did it for like a week and a half at another location. So it was done, and they wanted to do it after that, and I stopped it for a moment. The lady that was doing... Valerie Harper is her name, yeah. She's a good friend of David's, and she lives around the corner from me here on the park, on Central Park, and they came to one of the backers audition, her and her husband, and her husband's a producer that produces plays and things and all that, and they wanted to send it to San Francisco to go out there, and in the shape it's in. It's a narrated show with a small band. And I didn't want to go at that time to San Francisco. They wanted me to go out and put it together in San Francisco, and I said, they wanted to do it right away. And I said, no, I'm not going to San Francisco at this moment. So that kind of shut it down for a while, and then and I also said at that time I wanted to make it into a larger play, with take it away from the narration, put dialogue and stuff like that in, it has a form of that. But I never quite have gotten it up running doing that. So I just went ahead and put that out the way it was. And probably I should have left that particular show that way. We're working on another show right now called When Goons and Hooligans Ruled. Connell Fowkes, the piano player here in town, bass player, and myself. And
did you say When Goons?
When Goons and Hooligans.
And Hooligans, okay.
And it's about a period of time in the 60s back in Chicago when I went there and went to music school. And I worked for about 8 years for the syndicate, the Mafia, which was actually Oriental on the near north side of Chicago at that time. The Italians were on the south side. So it's about the period of that time when Bob Scobie I took over when Bob Scobie died of cancer. I was playing opposite his band. I had a small little band opposite his. And I took over that club and all that kind of stuff. So it's about that period of time working for the syndicate for 8 years and all the ins and outs of what went on there and all that kind of stuff. And it's I didn't do it in the narrating form like that show is done small. I've done it larger, so it has a cast of 8 people, and the music I want to set it in is sort of the arrangements like Bobby Darin arrangement kind of stuff.
Well, is this
a real 60s sounding kind of thing, So.
Was this a fictional story, or is there any history into this? Because
all of them have a lot of history in them. All of them have a lot of fact in them, but they've all been made to a fictional storyline. Everything I've done, I've written a lot of different stuff, and basically what you find out about writers like Woody and myself and everybody else is that in their plays there is a lot of stuff that is actual fact, but you weave it so it's got different names and different places, locations, and different stuff, so it's not exactly recognizable. But most stuff that people write, that I found out in talking to most writers, there's a lot of themselves and a lot of fact within their fiction. So basically you make it fiction, but there's a lot of stuff in there. Like in that thing that you've got there, The Blind Man on the Corner, most of the stuff about ragtime and all that different sort of thing is fact.
So somebody actually jumped overboard to save somebody that fell in the paddle wheel?
No, that they didn't. But the idea of the guys' names and who was on the boat and what was going on and all that stuff is all true.
Okay.
But the idea of where the blind man came from isn't. I said I want the blind man on the corner in sitting on Memphis, like it says in the song the Beale Street Blues of W.C. Handy's. I'll tell you how it came about. We could talk forever on this stuff. I love to talk. I had a thing at Michael's Pub called the Turn of the Century Minstrels, which I have a bunch of tapes on and we'll put out someday as a tea orchestra from at the turn of the other century. It was like a dance orchestra. We did a lot of waltzes and a lot of tangos and a lot of things like that, and some early jazz and Memphis blues and early ragtime. And I had that at this place called Michael's Pub, which we were also working every Monday back in those days. This we're talking 15 years ago, back here in New York City. And the owner said, put this show in, so I did put this show in, so we had it in there 10 weeks running. And then after that, he said, why don't you do Spike Jones?